Looking at planning and zoning. Planning and zoning, typically in citizen surveys, not just in Moscow's, but we've seen this in our national citizen survey benchmark information as well, is one of the least liked services in a city as citizens report. So they did ask 2 questions in this survey. The first is the City of Moscow should consider the issue of climate change as it plans for the future. 48% strongly agree or agree, 24% were neutral, and 22% disagree or strongly disagree. And then on the second question, this was actually question 24 in the survey, and we had a few comments that folks either didn't understand this question or didn't fully appreciate the question, perhaps. So we've got a little bit lower response rate, but still statistically valid in this case. So just asked folks to choose left or right, which scenario do you prefer, and the percentages broke out as follows. So that's, of course, included in the full report. I won't read it out loud to you here, but if you have any questions, please let me know. All right, sustainable environment focused primarily on recycling, and so it was interesting to note we asked about the support for development of a single-stream recycling pickup service, and then we asked about the willingness to pay up to $5 per month for single-stream. The chart on the right shows the breakdown of those. The strongly agree and agree folks, 71% supported development of that program, while 46% were willing to pay up to $5. Neutral on the subject, 14 and 13, and then, of course, the inverse on the disagree and strongly disagree for those items. But seeing a fair amount of support for that program, which I don't think is surprising considering the earlier results we saw from other questions. Transportation has included, this table to the right, has included this in the last survey as part of their multimodal transportation planning efforts, asking residents to gauge their level of support for, or excuse me, a level of agreeance with the value or the importance of the items listed in the table. In addition to that, they asked this year if residents supported the installation of enhanced biking facilities, such as shared lane markings, bike lanes, removal of parking on 3rd Street east of downtown for biking-type activities. And we had 54% of those groups, or of the citizens, strongly agree or agree with that statement. 32% are neutral, and then only 13% disagree or strongly disagree, which is interesting. Then on the table on the right that I alluded to, those have simply been ranked by the percent that folks feel they are most important to least important. And then the 2012 numbers were included for comparison, showing the same few items rose to the top there, maintaining and improving roadways, providing continuous sidewalk, those types of things. Maybe interesting to note, if not important, street crossings ranked higher this year by a bit than last, and that was around the time of the underpass discussion when that really began. So again, that context is just interesting to keep in mind as we look at these. The Tree Commission looked at 2 questions regarding their mission. The first asked respondents to choose the most important feature of a healthy tree street population, and then the second asked the level of agreeance with the statement, I support the city's efforts to enhance street shade trees by ... The most important items are listed here, increasing aesthetics and property values as features of a street tree population. And then for supporting the city's efforts, the items that they felt were most important included developing a drought-tolerant shade tree, requiring trees be planted at all new construction sites, and then number 3 on that last list was identifying locations where shade trees are missing and working with adjacent landowners to get them planted. So I think that provides the Tree Commission some interesting information to move forward with. Some demographics, looking at who answered the survey. We take our demographics and do a quick check with, for instance, the local census. Also had a great suggestion to look at Bureau of Labor standards at some other things. But we want to be sure that the people responding to the survey, how they identify themselves, is similar to how our population as a whole is made up. And with the different breakdowns we got, it made good sense. Everything fit nicely. So with employment, we've got 32% in 2014 that are not employed, 19% part-time, and 48% full-time, very much in line with previous year's figures, especially more recent figures. For those enrolled at a local university, we have 11% of respondents who are attending a local university full-time, 3% part-time, and 85% are not attending a local university. We do ask method of transportation, and the first question is, do you use motorized vehicle for transportation? If so, please answer the two follow-up questions. So we have 70% using motorized vehicles, 20% noted they do not ride with others, and 20% note they do ride with others, while 51% noted they do not ride with others, and that's just of the 70% who use the motorized vehicles. Additionally, 7% note they walk, 7% note they bike, 1% work at home, and 5% are other. And I should have made it clear, this is in reference to commute. How do people get from point A to point B for their commute? Residency for City of Moscow residents who responded to this survey is in line with previous year's surveys, with a little bit of an adjustment in our 2 to 5 year category. We have quite a bit of respondents who have been here for more than 20 years, with the rest of the age groups broken out fairly evenly across the board. For the type of housing and household potential types that people could live in, 65% live in a detached one-family house, detached from any other houses, 12% in a duplex or townhouse, 16% apartment or condominium, and 5% are mobile home. Asking about education, we have, as we have had in previous surveys, a high rate of bachelor's degrees and graduate or professional degrees in our community, with 35% and 36% respectively, and then the others break out as listed here. For our income, again, these numbers have been fairly in line with previous years. We have seen a bit of an increase in the 50 to 99 and 100,000 or more, with a corresponding decrease in the less than 24,000 and 25,000 to 49,000 areas. So a little bit of shift there. Looking at race, ethnicity, age, and gender, these again are things that we double check with the census. Everything is right in line with what we expect, what's been reported that we would expect to see in Moscow. With our largest group, our white or Caucasian, with 89%. Our age groups are broken out in a fashion that correlates with survey responses in general. We find our older residents will typically respond to surveys more often, while our younger residents will not. 57% female, 41% male is all as we would expect. That is the end of the show. Any questions?
Jen, I got a couple of comments that I'd like to make, and one of them is the slide just a little bit ago you showed 41% of the people that took the survey had lived here for longer than 20 years. Mm-hmm. And there was a pretty good mix, but from 2 years to 20 years, they range from 13 to 15% in each one of those categories. And the point that I want to make here is that when you look at that and then you look at the gender, the age and the gender, the percentages, you had 7% that were 18 to 24, 16% 25 to 34-year-olds. The highest percentage was 35 to 44-year-olds with 19%, and then 9% 45 to 54, 55 to 64, 18%, 65 to 74, 12% over 75, 16%, and kind of an interesting thing, 57% of them were females, 41% males. So it's kind of the females are kind of kicking the males a little bit.
I think that's typical in survey responses as well, though.
The ladies like to take care of things a little bit more than men, I guess, on these sort of things. So there's got to be some kind of something.
Speak to mine.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make is the age, the gender, and the results are getting a real good cross-segment of folks. I think that's terrific because you're getting everybody from millennials way up to the World War II seniors. So I think that's a good cross-segment for a good bite for our community to get a chance at.
Well, another feature of the survey that we include as well is we ask, at the top of the survey it says the person with the most recent birthday is the one we'd like to complete the survey, just to kind of take out that, okay, honey, you fill it out, or, let's have somebody else do it. So we try to include that in trying to help get our good representative sample. So.
Questions for Jen?
Good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's going to take some digesting.
Well, I love numbers. I'm a numbers guy, so I've read through this thing a half a dozen times. The thing I like about surveys, citizen surveys like this, it really kind of tells us where people are thinking, where we're at. It's kind of like a report card in a way, how and what people are thinking, how our city's been ran. And I think it's terrific to get that information. Dan?
Jan, I was looking at the first slide of your demographics when you had the employment information. Not employed, that includes students, unemployed folks, and retirees.
It does. I should have made that mention. That's something we've noted in previous surveys, that it could be affected by our student population.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure we didn't have 32% unemployment, so.
No, no.
Terrific job, Jen. Thank you very much.
Very much.